In the Sloviansk direction, the Russians once again tried to establish full control over Bohorodich. Today they assaulted the Ukrainian defense in the eastern part of the village. However, the assault was unsuccessful, and the Ukrainians managed to maintain control over this territory. The Russians also shelled Vernopilia, Dibrovn, Krasnopilia, Adamivka, Bohorodich and a number of other prefrontal settlements. In the Siversk direction, the main line of attack became Vernikamiansk. Today the Russians launched a series of attacks. One from oil refinery and one from Belohorivka. After heavy clashes, the Russians were once again forced to retreat. The Russians also continued to shell Ryhorivka, Ivano-Dorivka, Siversk and the areas around Siversk. In the Solidar direction, the Russians tried to enter a small settlement between Solidar and Pokrovsk called Bakhmutsk. The goal of this attack was to improve their tactical position by establishing control over the main retreat route from Pokrovsk. This way the Russians would take the Ukrainians in Pokrovsk in a shallow pocket. However, this attack was unsuccessful. In the Bakhmut direction, heavy fights took place on the territory of the Volhyerska thermal power plant. Their first attack was launched on Novolyuhansk. Some sources previously suggested that the Russians managed to establish partial control over that village. However, today the Ukrainians not only managed to repel their attack, but they also seem to have pushed the Russians out of the village completely. The second attack was launched from Rodi on Semahiria. After heavy clash, the Russians suffered severe losses and had to retreat. Apart from ground fights, a lot of clashes take place between the artillery. Ukrainian artillery continues to consistently destroy Russian ammunition depots deep into the occupied territories, in particular in Alchevsk, and it seems like the Russians started to feel the shortage of ammunition. NASA FIRSM data over the last week shows that Russian use of artillery has been rapidly decreasing along the entire front line in the Donbas, which strongly suggests that HIMARS are having a continued impact on Russian artillery capabilities. Some sources suggest that the intensity of Russian artillery strikes decreased almost fivefold in this region. In the south, the Ukrainians are actively trying to achieve the same result in order to suppress Russian artillery fire. Today the Ukrainians continued to fire rockets at military objects near Novokakhovka, Melitopol, and near a number of smaller settlements. A lot of shells also fall in the central part of this region. The Ukrainians also targeted yesterday a bridge in Dorivka that leads over the river in Ulits. The bridge is damaged, but can still be used. As you remember, the main goal of the Ukrainians is to cut off the Russian forces on the right bank of the Dnipro Rive from the rest. By destroying the bridge in Dorivka, they would further divide these forces into two parts, and fragmented forces are a much easier target. Right now the biggest hindrance on their way to achieving fragmentation of Russian forces is Russian air defense. However, today there was some confirmation that the Ukrainians started their hunt on Russian air defense and already managed to destroy some less powerful machines located near the Black Sea. This is quite clever, because now the Russians might need to relocate their more powerful air defense away from the bridges that the Ukrainians try to target, which will increase their chances of successfully destroying important for the Russians' bridges.